and we're doing a video live on the cell phone. So if we see a little bit of movement around, this is going to be a little bit different format. So basically what it comes down to is, I wonder if I can set this, I don't know, I think I just got to hold it. So what ends up happening is there a difference between Creality Print with a K2 Plus versus Orca Slicer on a Mac computer? And I've been doing a series of tests with benchies and models and things like that. If you've kind of looked at my past prints, what we found, especially the debacle with the new Creality Print, that I had the worst print ever. And that thing was just ugly, horrible. This is a piece that I was doing on Tinkercad. And I thought it might have been a corrupt file, but yeah, apparently it wasn't. That was with the new Creality Print with the Mac. And so I went down to the previous version, reinstalled it, redid the calibration for the computer and everything, and the K2 Plus, and I still came out with probably not as good of a print as I had gotten before. Definitely better, but still had some issues on here. And then I took the exact same print and printed it out with Orca Slicer, same filament, the whole 9 yards, with a general high-speed PLA standard profile on Orca Slicer, and it came out great. So yeah, there were some issues that maybe it was a clog in the nozzle. So what I ended up doing is doing a few sets of benchies, and the Creality Print benchy always had problems with it. You can look at the previous videos, and then I would do the Orca Slicer one, and it obviously had less ones. George there, hey George, how's it going? And then so go back, because the Orca Slicer one was better. So then I switched and I went back to Creality Print, printed out a benchy, and yeah, still got poor results. And I even went so far as to take the Orca Slicer benchy, export that as an STL, and print it on Creality Print with my Mac, and still got substandard results and compared to the Orca Slicer. So what we're going to end up doing is we're going to rock with Orca Slicer for now, and I'm seriously thinking about getting a laptop, a Windows laptop, because people are getting much better results. I put it out on a few boards and pages and things like that, and people with Windows are really, really happy with what they're getting. A few other people had commented that they had Mac and they got less than desirable results. So they went to Windows and those things went away. So yeah, it ends up, let's show you what I'm doing right now. Is, of course, we're in Orca Slicer. We're doing a mechanical switch for the K2 Plus. We'll see if this works or not. I'm not sure. Basically, we got that going on right there. And this just finished printing. I just got a notification, so we're going to check that out. But what I'm going to try to do, we got this little neck thing, and we're going to take a look at kind of the results that we ended up getting. Now, this is the other model that I ended up printing out. If I don't bang my head on. Definitely, and then we got some super glue on there, and we got some different things. But this was because it was Creality Print, imported from another file. And yeah, in case you want to see that there. So we're just going to rock in here. And like I said, what we ended up getting was better prints with the Orca Slicer. This one here is the Orca Slicer benchy that I exported and put into Creality Print, and we still get stringing. If you can see inside the wheelhouse there, we still got some separation of the floor and the wall pieces. You know, you can see down in there, and we still got some messed up areas, especially on the back here. So this proves to me, and this is the same problems that we ended up having with the Creality Print benchy. So yeah, all the problems that are in there. And yeah, I mean, it's a little bit better, but there's inherently some problems with this. And since this is a Orca Slicer benchy that we exported and put, and there's a little hole down in there next to that little thing, we still got problems. You know, and if you look on here, the bottom, we don't got a real good thing on the letters. So, yeah, and then this is the other one that we ended up doing with Creality Print and their benchy, and there's even more holes. Inside the wheelhouse there, if you can see that right in there, and then around this outside, even on the the three corners here, you can see the tiny hole right there. So obviously there's some problems with the Creality Print in a Mac computer. So it is what it is. This is the next piece for that mechanical switch, on-off switch. And so we just printed this out, and we got some different coloring in here. Definitely got some ripples in there. That's something that needs to be figured out, which is weird because we got the ripples here, but not on this piece here. And for those of you that are wondering, my bed mesh is like 0.28, 0.31, somewhere around in there. It kind of varies. So, yeah, very, very interesting. So, but like I said, a number of people had ended up saying that they got better results with a Windows machine with their K2 Plus versus their Mac. So this is going to be kind of an interesting little thing. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take all this stuff over here. We'll clean this stuff up. We'll put you guys up on a tripod, and we'll get back to kind of doing some stuff so I can get a little bit of a better view. Let me see if I can get this thing from around my neck. That's that little neck piece that I had. I was trying that out. So let me know if that's worth it or not. Veritha says, printer troubleshooting, always frustrating, always rewarding when it works in the end. That is absolutely true. But I'm just kind of amazed at the difference of quality between the Orca Slicer and the Creality Print. So bear with me. We'll get this all set up and we'll get you on the right track here. Thanos is not amused with the varying qualities of between the Creality Print and the K2 Plus and Orca Slicer. So yeah, it has been a real kind of an interesting little deal that we've been doing here. And you know, what do you end up doing? It is what it is. Let me move you all over here, kind of back to the normal side. I don't think there is a normal side. And we'll just do some chit-chatting. And get our ambient light going on. Kind of enjoying what we got going on. So yeah, kind of interesting. Good morning, Steve. Terry's back. Have thought about adding Windows to your Mac. My son ran both. The little tiny comments. Let me get on my computer, and we will pull up the live stream so I can read the comments. And we'll cut off. So Terry ended up saying, yeah, my son ran both Apple iOS and Windows on his MacBook Pro when he was in college in engineering school. That's absolutely true. That is another option that I'm looking at. There is an app or software, it's called Parallels, And that is definitely another option. Matter of fact, but with the parallels, those for Mac, can't remember how much that was. Desktop 26 for Mac. Oh no, seriously? Subscription? I hate subscriptions, good Lord. Let's see, products, try free, sign in, $65 a year. And that is the standard edition. The pro edition is $78 a year. And the business edition is $100 a year. I hate subscription services. I would rather just buy a laptop than have to do a subscription service that could change their pricing or whatever. I don't know. Is it just me? Maybe it's just me. I just really don't like these subscription service BS that they got going on. Terry says, yeah, he used Parallels so he didn't have to reboot or switch between the two. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely, I totally get that. Let me see if I can pop out chat. Can I pop the chat out? Yes, I can. Okay. So I can make the chat bigger. Can I? Yes, I can. Okay, cool. So now, yeah, Parallels looks good. I was pretty excited about it when some people were telling me about it, when I was looking at it, and I was like, hey, Parallels, if it works, we'll run with that. But the problem is it's subscription. So, dang it. Yeah, like I said, I just don't get, I'm tired of the subscription stuff. Of course, then again, I'm old enough to remember when ice cream didn't have security strips on them, you know, for people to take the lids off and, you know, lick the ice cream and put the top back on. I remember when you actually bought programs and, you know, you owned them. Matter of fact, the software that I normally use for for live streaming is Ecamm Live, and that is a Mac program. But I bought it lifetime license when it was a program when you could buy it, and then now you can't get a lifetime license. So I'm kind of one of those who are grandfathered in. Nothing like feeling old. But yeah, grandfathered in, so I have the program, and yeah, I have the lifetime license. So, but yeah, we're getting subscriptioned to death. But yeah, getting into Orca Slicer, and this is this kind of print. The quality and the surface finish on this is like, I might have to do some calibration, because like we ended up seeing, you can see we got that ripple effect. You can actually feel that, but on other parts of the model, we didn't get it, but we do get some differentiation between the surface finish and the color and so on and so forth. But there was at one point where I did change the nozzle temperature and added another 5 degrees. So, but you know, that was way long after that. So I'm not sure what's going on there. So eventually I'll probably do some calibration with this. But, you know, for now, I'm just not real happy with Creality Print on my Mac. And like I said, maybe it's just a thing with my computer. We'll see what happens. But the Parallels, if I could buy the program, I would do that. But now that I see that, I'm probably just going to run with a Windows laptop, and I priced a few of them locally, and it's like $850. And so that would do everything for my 3D printing, engraving, whatever it ends up doing there. So yeah, just not too impressed with that. What does everybody else run? Everybody else run Windows on their 3D printers? I think everybody does. I don't know. I really like my Windows, but you know, if you're getting substandard quality, and like I said, there's a marked difference between the quality of just on my Mac using Creality Print and Orca Slicer, for at least benchies anyway. So I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe I just need to do another reinstall, shut down my Mac, deinstall Creality Print, go back, reinstall it clean, and try running that again. But I got my calibration. I calibrated everything before, and that's the sad thing, is that I was getting really good prints with it. And then after upgrading to that new version of Creality Print, it just didn't work out well. So just not a happy camper. But what do you do? What do you do? But we're just going to drive on. And with this is going to be that, what was that thing? Oh, the mechanical switch for the K2 Plus. That's what we're working on. Faritha says, Mac has always been terrible for hobby stuff and other than audio and video productions. Tons of small software just doesn't exist for Mac. Yeah, that's true. That is true. And I mean, it does good for audio and video. I can attest to that because I used, you know, Final Cut Pro 10 and stuff like that. So Faritha says, especially in astrophotography, space Mac is pretty useless. All you rocket scientists out there doing that hardcore stuff. Yeah, and that might just end up, like I said, more and more I'm leaning towards getting that Windows laptop and just run with that. And then, you know, then if I could find a way to access my Mac and like the iCloud with the Windows laptop, that would be interesting to see if I could do that. But if not, you know, worst case scenario, I get a Windows laptop and boom, yeah. Therapist says you can probably test this by running a virtual Windows machine on your Mac. Yeah, that's what we were talking about, that Parallels. And that is the most recommended parallel iOS Windows system that you can get. And unfortunately, it went subscription based, just like everybody else. So, yeah, but it does. Well, wait a second here. Let's see. I'm sure it has a try before you buy. New upgrade students. I'm not student. New Parallels. Tahoe ready. We're not even on Tahoe, I don't think. Parallels for Mac. And let's see. Products. Promotions. Military. I wonder if I could get it. Parallels for military. Save up to 50%. Standard would be $90 a year for the Pro version. For standard, it's $75 a year. Seriously. But, ooh, they do have a trial run. You could try it free, but again, I don't want to be locked into a subscription fee of, what was that for the standard one? $65 a year. you know, it's $5.40 a month, but I mean, I just don't really want to keep paying that. Ferrithus asks the question, are there no free alternatives? Just that trial software, the trial one for Parallels, to see if it works, to do the testing to see if there is a difference between the two. But other than that, I'm not aware of any. But with that said, I haven't done a huge search on that, so there might be. But when I had been searching before, and before I didn't have a problem because the Creality Print was running good. So, but Parallels was the number one. So, yeah, there it is. But, and then the other thing, what was the other one? Oh, the Bamboo H2S. That is getting some rave reviews. So that is looking pretty interesting. As a matter of fact, Uncle Jesse did a review on the K2 Plus versus the H2S, and even though the K2 Plus was faster than the H2S, the quality of the H2S, according to him, he said it just ends up being better, and you can run some other filaments, like for example, TPU. He had a bunch of problems with the K2 Plus running TPU. He couldn't actually get it to go, but with the Bamboo H2S, he got that rocking. And so yeah, that's a tempting thing there. I don't know, if I was going to get another machine, and again, I would have to wait and see other reviews and see how it ends up being. But being that it's Bamboo, and they put out a good product, I just don't like their data access system and all of that stuff, but I don't know. Ferrithus says he never had any issues with TPU on the K2 Plus. Yeah, I've heard some other people doing TPU, but then again, how often am I going to do? I've never done TPU, so again, it could be just a individual user thing with Uncle Jesse, because I have seen people that have done the TPU on the K2 Plus and they haven't had any problems. So again, it's the one thing I do know is that you're going to have to tweak the K2 Plus, it seems, a little bit more than you would with Bamboo products. Not that Bamboo products are immune to problems or anything like that, but I don't know. The joys of 3D printing. The joys of 3D printing. So, I'm just kind of cleaning this piece up here. And if this works, I'll be pretty happy. No more reaching around the computer. No more reach arounds. So we'll see how that goes. Let's see, Bamboo is great out of the box, but you're locked in. The K2 definitely needs tuning, but once tuned properly, you can do more than Bamboo printers. Yeah. Sort of like Mac and Windows. So true, so true. So close. We're almost got it. Almost. There we go. A little tight, but we got it. And then this piece, it's going to go there. This is going to go towards the front. And that'll snap in there. And then what's going to happen is you're going to have this piece which is going to slide in here. Let's see how well this goes in. Ooh, that's a tight, tight fit. We have to do a little bit of shaving on this. Veritha says, my uncle is absolutely new to 3D printing. Got a bamboo, no trainer machine for him, would not recommend a Creality to him, but anyone more advanced is going to benefit from the Creality ones. Yeah, because it's kind of just like with anything else. Once you get everything settled, it's kind of like resin printing. You know, once you get your settings, everything is calibrated, you're going to run with the same filament, and that's a done deal, and pretty much that's going to be it. So see if we just trim a little bit off of here. But yeah, I'd have to agree with you on that. But then there's also that everybody, things are getting more and more user friendly. So that's a fact. And oh, that's what it was. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens with all that. Let's see. How's this go? I think it's like this. Man, that is a tight fit. So anyway, this thing is supposed to go together like so. And this will be the back of the machine. This will be the front of the machine. So as you move this lever, this will go and supposedly turn on and hit that switch. That is the idea. But I've got to glue this bottom piece first because we already glued the top one. So I'll have to glue this. This won't be a done deal project. Not today, because we'll have to glue this and let it get all good. And then I need a little bit of shaving on this to do because that is really, really tight. So yeah, we'll have to do some more shaving down on this. And a little bit of glue. So we got that. And the question is, where's my super glue? Let's take a walk and see. Kind of get like a top-down view. I think we can get a little bit there. Now I need super glue. just really going in there. Bet you that's hitting them, going through the backside as well. No, it's just going really in there. Alrighty. I think we should be good to go on that. And on this one, I guess I could put a little bit on there as well. Just do the double, a little bit of double. To make sure that this is all glued in good. Hopefully this will work. It'd be messed up to do all this work and then it ends up, it's like off like a quarter of an inch or something crazy like that. And be like, no! Alrighty. Alrighty, we'll let that stuff dry. And we will continue on. Back over here. So yeah, that's what we got going on. Fun stuff, fun stuff. Yeah, try to do that. Oh, let's see. Talking about that laptop, like I said, I found one for $850 Windows, and if we divide that by 65, that'll be 13 years. So in other words, if I did parallels and I spent $850, I would get 13 years of parallels use. And that would be the same price as the laptop. So is it worth, that's what I need to balance, is to find out and see, is it worth paying a subscription fee and will I have that Windows laptop for 13 years? I don't know, maybe 5? You know, I kind of keep my electronics for a long time. So I don't know, we'll see what happens. But if I get the Windows laptop, that'll be the only machine that I'm going to be using for the printing and stuff like that. So I don't know. But I'm going through some other things as well. Matter of fact, I'm going to go through and I'm going to recalibrate the filament. So that comes into play. Therapist says, I would do some more research. I agreed that the subscription is crap. Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, it's like, I'm still old school. I still like buy the program, you have the program. You know, you buy the camera, you have the camera. And unfortunately, there's a lot of companies out there like DJI, where they do their camera. You can buy their certain cameras or whatever, but you can't use it until you register and you give them your information and your access. So it's not like just buying a camera and turn it on, boom, you're good to go. More and more companies are requiring you to enter in information, and that you don't really own the camera because you have to do extra things. And then, more, I think more and more, we're going to see more where it's like, okay, well, if you want to use this at all, you're going to have to pay a small subscription fee. You'll get like a base use of the camera or whatever electronic device. And then later on, if you want more bells and whistles, you're going to have to pay a subscription fee. And I hate that. But it is what it is. What do you do? And then who's to say that, they're just arbitrarily just charge you more money, kind of like rent on when you're renting a house and the rent just arbitrarily goes up. Rent usually just doesn't go up arbitrarily, but once you've paid for the software and you've made the software and it goes onto the camera and, you do some firmware upgrades and stuff like that, by just increasing the subscription fee by $1, and let's say you got 1 million people, I mean, holy crow, that's a great way to make money. So I understand that part of it, but it's just crazy. Ferris says that would be the point where I would not buy that camera. Vote with your money. Absolutely, yeah. And unfortunately, that's where we are these days, And there was another company. Matter of fact, was it Louis Grossman or Rossman or whatever that guy's name the Right to Repair guy. Watch his videos from time to time, and he was talking about how, I think it was in Australia, so maybe Zombie Hunter if he pops on, but there was or it's the UK, I can't remember, but there was a company that had like a thermostat control, control your home thermostat or whatever, and you bought it and it was yours. And then the company went bankrupt, and that same company, I guess, rebranded, got into made another LLC or whatever, and then they ended up taking that exact same program, just under a different company name, and they made it a subscription fee, and they tried to say, hey, well, if you don't pay the subscription fee to all the past users who bought the device and had that free access, now they're going to be locked out and they would have no functionality of that program or control of the thermostat or whatever it was. And that Lewis guy, Rossman, I think his name is, he talked about that, and basically he put out a bounty and said he'll pay $5,000 for somebody to code, and so that they could go back to the previous firmware, because firmware upgrade, boom, you're done, and then you couldn't go back. So being able to go back retroactively and saying, hey, we know that we sold this to you before and you totally owned it, you had all the access, but then we went bankrupt, and then we just changed names and did some LLC and legal paperwork, and now they're suddenly a new company, and now they're trying to force people to say, well, now you can't have any access unless you do the subscription fee. That's dirty. Yeah, I totally agree with Ferris. Vote with your money. But there needs to come a time where we tell people and say, you got to stop crazy stuff. So it is what it is. Getting closer down to the trip to Vietnam. We're taking a trip to Vietnam. Matter of fact, how many days we got left? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days and a wake up. So 7 days and a wake up, and we will be heading to Vietnam. That'll be interesting. And yeah, that'll be fun. Take a little break from all this stuff. Ferris says that's when usually Europe steps up and does what America should be doing and force these mega companies to behave. You can thank the EU for USB-C on Apple devices. Yeah, yeah. As a matter of fact, in the EU and like the UK, it ends up that there's something like a 2-year thing, and if they change stuff, they got to go back and they got to pay. I mean, they really protect their people in that regard. They don't protect them in regards to freedom of speech. I think this last year, I think Russia, I saw a thing where it said that Russia had arrested 400 people for things that they said on social media. And it's like, oh, that's horrible. But then in the UK, it was something like 3,000 people that they have arrested now with, UK citizens can't even display their own country's flag because certain groups of people refugees that are in their country find it offensive. And so now the British police are arresting people for displaying and showing the British flag. Like, if your country has got to the point of where your country is arresting its own citizens that were born and raised in that country to fly that flag and arrest them for that, yeah, your country's done. I think the UK is done, unless there is this huge push to get rid of all Iran now. They have lost their country, so, and that's unfortunate. Terry Lay says they arrested a guy for saying "I like bacon" and at a Hamas protest. Yeah, it's unfortunate. And then there was those other stories, videos that I saw, where the British police in certain neighborhoods were stopping British citizens who were walking their dogs because of all of the other people were complaining, saying that it wasn't, dogs are unclean according to their religion. And so they were telling citizens, British citizens who had lived there their whole lives, had walked their dogs for, 10, 20 years or so, you can't walk your dog here anymore because it's offending these other people. So I don't know. Bertha says, I've never heard of that, but in German, hate speech is illegal. You can't display Nazi stuff. That's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. I know that. I got a little bit of German ancestry, as my last name was Mach, M-A-C-H. But yeah, it's interesting on how these things have been twisted around into where, let's put it this way, take it on a micro level. You invite somebody into your house, and then they start saying, well, hey, I don't like you for the food that you eat. I don't like you for the art that you display or the things that you have on your coffee table. And it's like, excuse me, you're a guest here. I don't care. If you don't like it, you need to leave. But unfortunately, what has happened is with, and it is unfortunate with a lot of countries, is that they have allowed certain groups of people to come in and basically say, screw it, I'm here now. If it offends me, you have to bend to my will. But it's interesting because if you go to their home countries and you try to flip the script and do the reverse and say, hey, I'm this religion, that religion, any religion that is different from theirs, there's no way you would be able to do that. There's no way that you could get the concessions that they're getting in these other countries around the world, like Germany, UK, and so on and so forth. And it's just amazing because it only takes, I remember as a sociologist was commenting, and a few others have as well, that it only takes a small minority to change the culture of a country. And I think one was like, it was either 6.5% or 7.5%. I saw another one that says that if you get 10.5% of a foreign population into your country, you can change the culture. And then, of course, that's exacerbated when you start having foreigners elected to government positions, and it just snowballs. So, yeah, this whole DEI and all that kind of stuff, it's just very, very problematic. Do whatever you want, believe whatever you want to believe, but don't force me to change my way of life because you came into my country and my home and telling me how to live differently because it offends you. You're the visitor here. So unfortunately, we got this weird upside down stuff. Terry says, I don't know if it's just me, but your audio is going in and out. Oh no, I don't know. Ferrithus, you got that problem? It could be me. Then again, I'm streaming from my phone, but it is hooked up to the network, so I don't know, maybe. That could be both of us, I don't know. But hopefully, we're probably gonna be running this video a little short because it's actually getting kind of hungry. It's about lunchtime right now. So yeah, that's what we got going on. Fun stuff, but next time I'll make sure before I do anything on the phone, if I stream like this before, or again, what I'll end up doing is I'll make sure I'm hooked up to a network, to the home network, because I'm not sure if I should be on the Wi-Fi. I should be on the Wi-Fi, but I'm not 100% sure. So that might be part of the problem. Yeah, I might be the problem. It wouldn't be the first time, and it won't be the last. But yeah, I'm going to take about 10, 11 days, go into Vietnam, do a little bit of traveling and see how that goes. And then we'll come back and boom, we'll get right back into 3D printing. I definitely want to get into doing work on the cosplay armor, the Doom Eternal Slayer costume. We got the helmet done, or we printed it out. It's not done. We still need to process it and all that. But Ferrith says, I work in government for almost 10 years now. There's no such thing as DEI hires. I worked in the government for the state of Colorado for 11 years. And yeah, I saw, there is that preference thing that they got going on. And unfortunately, I've seen promotions of people because there were actually quotas of saying, hey, we need to have a more diverse workforce, to the point where they would overlook certain people and hire or promote others based solely because of the diversity issue. And even though some people were promoted, or, definitely in promotions, dumb as a bag of hammers, but diversity-wise, we looked really good, for the state of Colorado. But then, trying to fire somebody who's working for the state you got to basically do something horrible. So yeah, I've seen it, and but the military, when I was in the military, it was based off of performance. Be the soldier that be, know, and do, and you had to know your information because lives are at stake. You got to know your job, the job of the person below you, and the job of the person above you, and yeah, that makes a whole hell of a lot of difference, because then it didn't really matter what your skin color was or your religion or whatever. When I was in and did 20 years, it was based off of performance. So yeah, and the only color was green. That's basically what it was. So even though we had all the colors of the rainbow in the military, and including some people of the rainbow, the don't ask, don't tell, I went through all that. It didn't really matter. At that time, at least in my experience, and what I saw doing 20 years in the U.S. Army, with 12 years overseas, it didn't matter what you did off the clock. Do whatever you want to do, but the job, if you can do the job, take care of soldiers, and boom, you're good to go. Be, no, do, all of that, you're good. I don't really care what you did on your off time, so. Ferrith says, all my hiring training was always, you have to promote jobs on sites and universities that are serving minorities, but when it comes to hiring, it was always hire the best candidate. Oh, okay, yeah, and that's as it should be. There is a difference to, like what you're saying is, hey, let's hit certain demographics hard and heavy with the advertising, for jobs or schooling or education or whatever it is, to do that. But again, you're going to hire the best candidate, and that's, in other words, it's work-based performance. But unfortunately, I saw it in the state of Colorado where that wasn't the case. Ferrith says, we even had points lists that are meant to prevent hiring base biasness on DEI criteria. Yeah, and that can be a good thing. I think that is, it should be based on something tangible, work, education, counseling, and if you do a points-based type of system, that definitely takes the biasness out of there. DEI is simply forcing us to promote everywhere, not just the big colleges. Yeah, unfortunately. And then there's that whole thing with the in the short end of the stick on university that didn't get high scores as the Asians or other people, and so they purposely didn't get the Asians. That's problematic, because then that's not work-based. It should be based on your work. It doesn't matter who you are, but if you get good grades, the college or the university should hire you or accept you based on how well that you do, not because of what you are. You know, advertise the crap out of it to whoever you want. I'm totally for that, everybody. But yeah, yeah, that's kind of a thing. That's kind of a thing for some people. But I'm old, and I'm retired now, so not my monkey, not my circus, but kind of interesting on when you look back and you see all these things. So I guess that's why I like 3D printing. I like the hobby thing. I like that it's merit based, because either you do a good job or you don't do a good job, you know. And aside from, you know, Mac and Windows computers, you know, I like what you put in and what you put out. There's a direct correlation to that. And of course, you got to have quality equipment and so on and so forth. But really, that makes more sense to me. And so, yeah, that was always what I did during my time in the military and working for the state. But yeah, the state was way worse than the military. The state of Colorado was really, really rough. It was that good old boy system, especially in Colorado. The prison systems was just, ooh, Colorado Department of Corrections. Wow, talk about corrupt. Not that the military was squeaky clean. We had our moments. But yeah, the state of Colorado was really, really corrupt. We had high-ranking wardens where they ended up. I remember a guy got a DUI. Warden got a DUI. He got pulled off a plane by the air marshal for being drunk and disorderly, and he kept his job. He had multiple DUIs. Had, you know, pulled off of a flight. You don't know who I am. I'm a warden of so-and-so prison, and it's like he kept his job. Totally fine way back in the day. And yeah, but if somebody of lower rank, like a guard or something like that, got a DUI, boom, immediately fired. No ifs, ands, or buts, no second chances, none of that. It was totally cut off. So Fairweather says, well, now they did away with DEI, so I can cherry pick where I advertise. I can hire whoever I want. Skin color, gender, elimination of DEI literally gives me all that power they said DEI gave us. Yeah, just keep it simple. That's all you got to do. And the problem is when you start coming up with all these new crazy things, it costs money. It costs money for companies to do that, to implement that stuff, to get trained on that stuff. And I even saw that in the Department of Corrections, going into that area and seeing that we had to have somebody come in and instruct and train the trainers that we had, and that was big money. And of course, the state has got to do that, so that's more tax dollars. And then you got to hire some outside entity to certify you in this DEI stuff and so on and so forth. And then it becomes part of the evaluation curriculum for prisons and the state of Colorado. And there's a certification, and you have to pass, and there's inspections, which always includes a ton of money. So one hand washes the other, but it's just a never-ending expenditure. And really you just don't need it. The funny thing was when they were talking about transgender inmates is that when you do a pat down, who can do a pat down on a transgender woman in a male prison? And they were like, well, how do we do this? How do we do a strip out? This is going to get a little graphic. Well, I'm not going to say enough to get banned on YouTube. But basically, when you do a strip out for inmates, they got to remove all their clothing, and then you have to look under their arms, behind their ears and their mouth, and down in the lower areas of their body, and bend and cough. That's actually a thing. And between their fingers and their toes and the whole 9 yards to see if they have contraband or carrying weapons, which happens a lot, stolen things, all of that. But now the question was, when you do strip outs, what do we do with the transgender women who were born males? And some of them had, surgery to do that. They didn't have the stem on the apple cut off, but they spent a ton of money because the question came up, well, if they're female up top, but they're male on the bottom, how are we going to do these strip outs? How are we going to do pat downs? How are we going to do searches and all this stuff? And it ends up, they had meetings after meetings, they had people come in and talk about this. And it ended up, one consideration that was being seriously considered was, well, what we can end up doing is we can have like a sheet, and from here up, you would have a female do the inspection and the pat down while that person is in the state of undress, and then a male correctional officer would do the bottom, and with kind of like a sheet with a hole, and then it would connect up, and so that way you would have this separation of. That was actually being considered a serious consideration. They went so far as to check and see how much it would cost to have like a plastic sheet with a hole and elastic and Velcro, and to do these, and how do we, I'm serious. It was insane. It was actually crazy. Let's see. Therapist says, I think you do need DEI. Prevented me from hiring whoever I want, forced me to hire the best candidate because I had no choice who I advertised to. I kind of see what you're saying. I think it should be merit-based. And again, if I get the point that if it is left up to an individual and there's no checks and balances to ensure that that worst person is not using that power in the wrong way, then there needs to be a system of checks and balances, which usually means there's got to be a committee, or at least two people, accountability, and so on and so forth. So there needs to be some accountability and oversight. So I don't think that you need DEI. I'm more of there has to be some accountability. So there should be somebody above you, or at least in my opinion. I totally trust you to do the right thing. But other people, and this is based off of my experience in the state of Colorado, you would definitely need to have a committee or two people, because things always go wrong in prison. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, there's usually a committee that would hire, but even then, they would use the evil side of DEI to skip over who was the best, and they would leave behind the people that were the best qualified, and they would hire people, unfortunately, that were not the best qualified, which usually ended up in costing the state of Colorado and the taxpayers sometimes tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars, just in millions of dollars just in lawsuits alone. So yeah, that Veritha says, accountability and oversight, that's what DEI was, though. You had to have your receipts. Yeah, you got to have your receipts. But I think DEI ended up being morphing into something to where it really got away from merit-based hiring and promotions and so on and so forth, like I experienced with the state of Colorado for 11 years. And other states, because we actually used to do training with other states that would come to Colorado and see how we did our system, and I would give briefings and stuff like that in regards to electronics and electronic security cameras, all the systems that we had, doors, prison doors, and what's open, what's not, and stun fences and the whole 9 yards. So but yeah, I had heard from other people from other states that were heavily vested into DEI that used it. It was the dark side of DEI, and it was like, come to the dark side of the force. And so you had the good and the bad, and you should be going for good. But that's just me. I don't know. But thankfully I'm retired and I don't have to deal with that. Not my monkey, not my circus anymore. So thankfully I'm retired and I can just play around with this 3D. The extent of my frustration is the 3D printing stuff that I'm going through now, and then maybe some travel stuff, trying to get pay for the e-visa to get into Vietnam. It wouldn't accept our credit card numbers because the address uses an APOAP, Armed Forces Pacific Post Office, and it's a different address, and that's where my bills go to. But the Vietnam government website for for the e-visa wouldn't accept that address for my credit card, and you have to have the right address for the credit. It was a whole big mess, and so I had to go back and go old school. And instead of using the APOAP, I used San Francisco, California as the address, same box number, whole 9 yards. And because that used to be a thing back in the day, if you couldn't send it to an APOAP address, you could send it to the same address, but it would be San Francisco, California, and you could do it that way. Well, thankfully, it still worked for the Vietnam. Otherwise, we'd have to, I don't know, get maybe the Weiss family or something to pay off the e-visa to get into Vietnam for a vacation. So, but other than that, yeah, that's, I don't have to deal with all that stuff. You know, of course, if you're doing the right thing, which I'm sure Ferrithus is doing the right thing, and, you know, most of us are, I haven't really met anybody that frequents my channel that is a jerk or does stupid stuff. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. But yeah, just do the good job and, you know, do good. That's all you got to do. Do what's right and do good. It's pretty simple. Help people that need help, and yeah, that's all you got to do. Therapist says, I'm trying. Yeah, we're all trying. So anyway, now that we went down that rabbit hole, I think that's all we got going on. So I had some parts come in, and I ended up getting some parts that I forgot what I ordered the parts for, but I have the parts. So I think it's like some M3 and M4 bolts and nuts and stuff like that. And then I also got in some magnets, some neodymium earth magnets, whatever those things are. And I totally forgot why I wanted those, but I have them now. So, and then I'm still waiting for the knurled inserts for this. You know, those still haven't come in. Those have been delayed. So the thing that I really want hasn't come in yet, got delayed, and the things that I didn't really want that I forgot that I even ordered are here. Ferrithus says, right now I'm trying to convince my engraver to produce custom PCBs. Actually, it can do it, but it's definitely some magic involved. Oh yeah, you were talking about that, how to do your own PCB boards and all that stuff. That is something right there. That is definitely interesting. So many things these days, if you look back just 5 or 10 years, what we could do back then and what we could do now is huge. You know, you used to have to, source out all that stuff to companies and get it done, and now we're getting so much stuff that you can do with lasers and 3D printers and, you know, SLC machines and printing in metal. You can do that stuff at home or in small shops that was, you know, used to be back in the day was, you know, cost you $200,000-$300,000 to get that type of equipment. And now we're getting mass produced, you know, 3D printers and, you know, multi-head machines, and it's just engraving. That's insane. Engraving on metal and stone and wood and glass and all of that. The prices keep going down to the point where it's like, you know, anybody can get into it these days. So thankfully it's coming down. Gives me something to do. So with that being said, I think I'm going to finish up this video. We're going to get back. We're going to wait for that to dry, and we'll do the mechanical switch. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed. Keep the fingers crossed, and we'll see if that ends up doing. And what I'll end up doing is I'll record that. We won't do a live stream, and then I'll try to make it into a video. And if it works, I'll make a video and throw that in there. Therapist says, have a good day, Steve. I'm done here too, in a bit, I hope. Hey, have a good one, bro. And anybody else who's watching, I really appreciate you. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. That would be the best thing that you can do. So there it is. And if you want to email me, official thevariedlife@gmail.com, you can do that. So let me throw in, because I can do this. If you want to subscribe to my channel, to the YouTube channel, and or email or anything like that, I'm just going to throw my little thing that I put in my videos Oh, it's 500. That's too much. Da-na-na. Oh, I need to go this way. Never mind. Don't do that. I don't know. So anyway, there's a YouTube channel, support my channel, whatever, new Facebook page, I got that going on. But yeah, like I said, like and subscribe to the channel. That would be the best thing that you could do for me. We'll let everybody go, and like I said, I'll work on doing the video on that mechanical switch, the on-off switch for the K2 Plus. If it works, we'll do a video. If not, I don't know. The next live stream, I'll tell you what happened if it didn't work. So, alrighty, with that, we will let everybody go and have a good one, and we'll see you all in the next video. All right, thank you. Peace. Alrighty, yes, we are done.